Welcome to a brand new series of videos on my channel where I will be ranking all episodes in each respective series from least best to best from the new series of Doctor Who. These series of videos will include series 1 to 12 as well as the 2009 specials, but I won't be including the Christmas specials as I feel that they deserve their own separate video. Furthermore, series 11 won't be included in this series as I have already given my thoughts on it and my opinion on those episodes hasn't changed too much on where I will put them. Regardless, Series 1 to 10 and Series 12 will be getting an in-depth ranking of themselves, so sit back and enjoy as we slowly but surely cover over 15 years of content, beginning with the one that started it all, Series 1. At number 10 we have The Long Game. Whilst not a terrible story or even one of the low points of the Russell T Davies era, The Long Game sadly suffers from being underdeveloped. There are really good ideas here with the spread of fake news breeding an empire that doesn't ask questions, and it's a brilliant idea, but I feel we only get a taste of this rather than getting the whole package. Characters like the editor, Kafka and Suki are begging to be leapt off the screen and become fully rounded. Unfortunately, there's just not enough time to develop these ideas. On top of that we have Adam, who again suffers from his potential being fully realised. All we seem to know about him is that he's clever and likes to learn, but if his motivation for sending future information to the past was given more clearance, he could have had a more positive 2-episode stint on how not everyone is cut out to be in the TARDIS. The Jagrafess is a bland-looking villain and just being a growling, snarling blob that doesn't convey much threat, and while Simon Pegg is definitely the highlight, he's not enough to save this episode from being nothing more than a missed opportunity. Not a terrible episode by any means, but far from good. Number 9. The End of the World. The End of the World is the definition of a mixed bag. Whenever I think of something good, I automatically think of something that drags it down. Whilst the idea of alien species gathering for a world-ending event as entertainment is a great idea, it's hit and miss. The comedy is hit and miss, the aliens are hit and miss, the production design is hit and miss. You get the idea. While aliens like Cassandra, the Mox of Balhoun, and the Forest of Cheam look good, the rest sadly look pretty cheap. Whilst Eccleston can nail the comedic dialogue, some of the jokes fall flat, with a writing style clearly trying to ape Douglas Adams but failing to hit the mark. A whodunit on a space station is a good idea for a Doctor Who episode, but it once again falls flat when the culprit is painfully obvious. I won't say don't bother watching The End of the World as you could find worse, but if you want better, there's plenty more out there. Number 8. Aliens of London and World War III. The first two parts of the new series has a lot going for it, but the biggest issue this story has is its tone. The idea of aliens using fear tactics and infiltrating politicians to gain access to weapons of mass destruction is a great idea, and, you know, it's clearly from a time when Doctor Who never touched politics. Furthermore, we do get to know the companions' domestic lifestyle and how time travel impacts as Rose's family, and while there are ideas here that are pretty good, I sadly think it's a detriment to Rose's character as she becomes more unlikable in this story. But on the other hand, this story is definitely a key piece of Mickey's development as he's well on his way to becoming more than just Mickey the Idiot. But combining all this with farting aliens, pig pilots and a CBBC tone does this story no favours. There are good ideas here, but it's sadly too childish for me, and while it isn't an awful experience, it's a very uneven one. Victory is sadly not naked for this episode. Number 7. Boomtown. Now on paper, bringing back the baby-faced farting aliens from earlier in this season seems like a bad idea, but it actually works in its favour. What happens when the Doctor easily defeats a villain and has to deal with the consequences of it? The dinner scenes between the Doctor and Margaret are a highlight of Series 1, as we question whether the Doctor, who has taken many lives before, has the right to pass judgment, and Annette Badland gives a terrific performance and is given more time to shine. The comedy is better handled here than it is in earlier episodes, as it's played very much straight and not too CBBC, and the dialogue is very witty. Unfortunately, what prevents this episode from reaching higher is its ending. It feels like a cop-out, as it's revealed that Margaret was lying through her skin suit teeth the entire time, and all that brilliant character building just ends up going nowhere, which is really disappointing. Couple that with an overcrowded TARDIS and Rose sadly becoming worse as a character for me. I mean, come on, Mickey deserves better here. And speaking of which, that's how you could sum up this whole episode. Excellent potential, but it deserves better as it slips on a very icy patch towards the end, and never really recovers. 2/3 of this episode are great, but the last third stops the whole of it from being a highlight of the 9th Doctor era. Number 6. Rose. If you want to get into Doctor Who, I would highly recommend this episode, as it perfectly eases a brand new generation to be taken on the trip of a lifetime. Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper are given fantastic introductions that would ensure the show's survival for at least another year. There's mystery, intrigue surrounding the new Doctor that you simply can't take your eyes off, as Eccleston has such a magnetic presence. It immediately gets new viewers hooked by using the Autons, even though they are not called that in the episode, a monster made from an everyday setting that will certainly get kids scared whenever they go by shop windows. And whilst the tone is still a bit CBBC in areas, it still gets a lot of things right by introducing a fantastic new Doctor, a simple story that is easy to follow, a villain from the past that is not too bogged down in continuity, and paves the way for a fantastic new era of the series that is still going strong today. Number 5. The Unquiet Dead. This was Doctor Who's first historical since it came back in 2005, and its first episode to contain a celebrity historical with the Doctor meeting Charles Dickens. As being Doctor Who's first historical, this episode succeeds from a production standpoint, as you really feel like you've stepped into Victorian Cardiff on a cold Christmas Eve. The Gelf I also think are a great creation, as they're aliens made out of gas that give them a ghostly and ethereal look that makes them look so unearthly but very benevolent as well. Simon Callow as Charles Dickens is brilliant, and he even goes through an arc of his own as he starts the episode chastising his own stale imagination, but him meeting the Doctor opens up his mind even more, and by the end Charles is inspired to write again and ends up walking ecstatically through the streets proclaiming, "God bless us everyone." Furthermore, this is Eve Miles' first appearance in the Doctor Who universe, as she plays Gwyneth, a serving girl with psychic powers who is used to bring the Gelf through the rift. Miles would of course go on to play Gwen in the spin-off series Torchwood, and that same rift mentioned in this episode will be the basis around Torchwood's activities. With an inventive monster, sparkling dialogue, excellent production design and performances, The Unquiet Dead is definitely a highlight in the Ninth Doctor's era. Number 4. Father's Day. You may have guessed by now that I'm not a fan of the character of Rose Tyler. However, I love Billie Piper as an actress, and this is her finest hour. Peter Tyler, Rose's father, died on November 7th, 1987, and the Doctor takes her back to the day of the accident, but at the spur of the moment Rose saves her father and damages time summoning the Reapers, creatures that have come to sterilise the wound in time by consuming everything. If I was to sum up this episode from a performance and script level, I'd say humanity. This story is filled with such human elements that make it work, which is personified in Pete Tyler, played excellently by Sean Dingwall. Rose's vision of her dad is this successful businessman, but in reality he was just a bit of a Del boy making a bit of cash, and Piper's acting on seeing her dad for the first time is brilliant, as she runs such a range of emotion because she doesn't know how to feel. Sean Dingwall as Pete is also excellent, as he's a man trying to make a living for his family and will do anything for them, which makes his sacrifice all the more heartbreaking. Pete didn't deserve to die, but he's willing to do this if it's to save everyone in his family. Not to mention the Doctor's best moment here is when he's talking to the married couple Stuart and Sarah, who think they're not important in the grand scheme of things, but the Doctor tells them that they are because he's never lived a life like those two, and that's what makes them special. If I do have criticism, it's the inclusion of the Reapers, as they feel like an obligation to the Monster of the Week, along with the cliched end of the world feeling. But with a superb multi-layered script combined with fantastic performances, Father's Day is definitely one of the more human adventures in Doctor Who's long history.
Number 3. Dalek. While there were new monsters that the production team would bring to the screen, that doesn't mean they couldn't rely on enemies of the past, and what better enemy to bring back than the Doctor's most iconic enemy, the Daleks. The Doctor and Rose arrive in 2012 in an alien artifacts museum owned by billionaire Henry Van Statten, but the Doctor is horrified to discover that his one living specimen is the last surviving Dalek from the Time War. Now, one of the aims of this episode was to bring the Daleks back and show them as a force to be reckoned with, and that would send kids scurrying behind the sofa once again, and it more than succeeded. The Dalek is perfectly introduced to new viewers, as it's shown to be a merciless, indestructible killer that honestly believes that anything different from it should die. Not to mention, the episode shows the true power of the Daleks. There are excellent scenes of death and destruction, as this Dalek is not messing around. Rob Sherman definitely knows how to write for these pepper pots, and one of the best moments is the Dalek being confused on what to do as it realises it's the last of its kind. The Doctor screams at the Dalek to die, but the Dalek just responds with, "You would make a good Dalek," which is just the worst thing that can be said to you by your worst enemy. And it's moments like this which make me wish that Rob Sherman would come back and write for the series. If I do have criticism, it's Rose defending the Dalek for wanting to feel the sunlight is just daft. But other than that, the Dalek is a superb episode filled with death, destruction, action, and an iconic villain brought back in full force once again. Number 2. Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways. At the time of this video, this story is over 15 years old, and in that time on the new series, not one story has topped this one in terms of a regeneration story. The Doctor, Rose and Captain Jack are forced to play deadly renditions of reality TV on the game station in the year 200-100, and escaping the games, the three discover the true enemy behind the game station, the Dalek Emperor and an army of 500,000 Daleks. While the games show references to the weakest link, Big Brother and what not to wear have dated a bit, that still doesn't stop this story from being a fantastic finale for the Ninth Doctor. The Doctor throughout Series 1 influenced the people around him, and it was rarely him who saved the day. But after the Time War, he became determined to be the Doctor again, and influenced so many characters throughout the series to become more than who they are and be better people. For this story, however, the Doctor saves Rose by taking the Time Vortex from her and pouring it back into the TARDIS, which costs him his 9th life. But every hero is only as great as its villain, and the Daleks are on top form here as they exterminate anything that's in their way. Not to mention the Dalek Emperor model is a thing of beauty. Plus, despite Jack only having been in 5 episodes up to this point, his death still means something. He trusts the Doctor with his life, and he knows he's a dead man when fighting the Daleks, but he'll fight to the last bullet if it means buying the Doctor more time. Not to mention, Nine's regeneration scene still gets me teary-eyed to this day, as it's so sad but reassuring at the same time, and can change knowing that he was fantastic. With a superb threat, excellent action, and amazing performances filled with too many fantastic moments to count, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways is a fantastic end to the Ninth Doctor's era. Number 1. The Empty Child and the Doctor Dancers. This was the first episode written by the Master, that is Stephen Moffat, and what a script he started out on. Chasing a ship through the Time Vortex, the Doctor and Rose arrive in the wartime London during the Blitz. While Rose meets time agent Captain Jack Harkness, the Doctor finds a group of orphaned children being terrorised by a child wearing a gas mask, asking for his mummy. What makes this my favourite Ninth Doctor story is that, like a lot of my favourite stories from each Doctor, it incorporates all the elements that I love about Doctor Who: humour, mystery, atmosphere, horror and character. This story still scares me today with the gas mask zombies, and especially the transformation of Dr. Constantine. We only met him 5 minutes ago, but it's still a sad and horrifying moment, as, while he's there to give exposition, we still learn a lot about him as a character. Constantine lost his children and grandchildren in the war, and being a doctor is the only thing he has left, so he makes it his duty to keep the patients comfortable, something the Doctor can relate to. This is also the introduction of Jack Harkness, and while he starts out as a cowardly yet dashing con man, it's still the Doctor's influence that make him a better person by the end of the story. From a production standpoint, this episode is excellent. Apart from a few dodgy green screen effects, you really feel like you've stepped into the Blitz, and setting it at night certainly adds to the atmosphere. Nancy is also a superb character, doing her best to look after hungry orphans, and comes to accept her responsibility as a mother by the story's end. Once again, thanks to the Doctor's influence, who gives us a superb speech about England standing up to the German war machine, which in turn gives her hope for the future, she finds it easy to accept time travellers, because the world is going to hell at this point, but the Doctor and Rose tell her of a better future which she can look forward to. Despite having a reputation of being one of the scariest stories, the main enemy is just a case of technology gone wrong, as the nanogenes fixed a dying, scared child looking for his mummy and spread it across wartime London, showing everything across the universe has consequences. I could go on for ages about how great this story is, but I'll just wrap up here. With excellent writing, characters, production values, and a brilliant use of sci-fi and horror, The Empty Child and the Doctor Dancers is a superb story in which everybody lives, and it's my favourite story of Series 1. Well everyone, that's all for ranking of Series 1. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, and join me next time where we will meet a brand new Doctor, go to a parallel universe, meet old friends again, and the Daleks and Cybermen will battle for the first time in their long history. See you next time.